this is a scripture that's been used to justify anti-Semitism over history, over time. It's gotten Jews known as, you've heard the term probably, Christ killers, which is a really unfortunate term. Because what's happening here in this passage is not Christians talking to Jewish leaders, but a group within Judaism talking to Jewish leaders. And that makes all the difference. Christians have not yet even been identified as such. We're years away from that at this point in time, in this story. So what we have going on here is two groups within Judaism itself, maybe jockeying for position and power. And Peter says this, not as a Christian, but as a Jew, to the Jewish leaders. And in doing so, he speaks truth to power, but it's power within his own group, so to speak. It isn't like you have this thing going on between two different religions, the way it was used in subsequent centuries as Christianity became a religion of the state with Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. And since then, it has been similarly applied, this scripture, to exclude Jewish people and to justify violence against them. You say, well, that was Hitler. Well, Hitler was Christian. Yeah. And so I say all that to get us into a discussion later this afternoon about violence and evil, but also to get us to ponder today how we move on from that. And what do we do when religious teachings or religious tradition are used in violent ways against other people? Is that ever okay? Can we ever justify using sacred writings in such a way? I don't think so. But the example I want to hold up in this scripture, the one who I believe is the hero here, isn't Peter. It isn't Peter who says we must obey God. Even though that's a noble thing to do, it's very subjective. But the wisdom in this passage comes not from Peter, but from the Jewish Gamaliel, who later, following the passage Ethel read, if you look more closely, what does he say? Gamaliel. Reading on in Acts chapter 5. After verse 32. He says, when they heard this, they were, what Peter had said, they were enraged and wanted to kill them. But a Pharisee in the council named Gamaliel, a teacher of the law, held in honor by all the people, stood up and ordered the men to be put outside for a while. And he said to the others, the Sanhedrin, who were left inside, men of Israel, take care what you do with these men. For before these days Theudius arose, giving himself out to be somebody, and a number of people, about 400, joined and followed him. But he was slain, and all who followed him were dispersed and came to nothing. And after him, Judas the Galilean arose in the days of the census and drew away some of the people after him. He also perished, and all who followed him were scattered. So in the present case, I tell you, keep away from these men and let them alone. For if this plan or this undertaking is of men, it will fail. But if it is of God, then you and I will not be able to overthrow them. In fact, we might even be found opposing God. So Gamaliel is the one who in his wisdom recognizes something that had been recognized 1,000 years before almost by Darius the Persian. Now Darius the Persian was not Jewish. Christianity hadn't come on the scene yet. But when the Persians took over Israel and Judah, what did Darius the Persian do? He said to them, go back to Jerusalem, rebuild your temple. It's okay. I don't believe in your God, but you do, and that's important. So as a mentor of mine says, Darius invents tolerance, and Gamaliel does the same thing here. He says, look, why oppose this? Let them be. And with time, if this teaching bears itself out as truth, then we'll know it. And there's nothing we could have done about it anyway.